A few weeks ago, my family and I went on a road trip to visit colleges. On one hand, the trip was full of excitement and anticipation, but on the other, our visits coincided squarely with the campus protests over the war in Gaza and the student encampments as well. Now, the protests certainly disrupted our tours, but the only place where they actually derailed them was at Harvard. There, the encampment overtook the central artery of campus, Harvard Yard, and because of that, Harvard had to seal it off from visitors. I tried to talk my way past the security guard, but the yard was absolute chaos. It was so disheartening to witness this scene at my beloved alma mater, and so painful to hear such hateful words being chanted from inside Harvard's walls. Graduate student Shabbos Kestenbaum testified to Congress about what it was like to be on campus during the encampment. He shares, "They screamed about globalizing the Intifada, drew pictures of our Jewish university president with horns and a tail, and screamed at all hours of the day that, quote, Palestine will be Arab. Perhaps most concerning, the protesters established their own rule of law on campus, creating self-appointed safety marshals to patrol the campus. These safety marshals followed Jews like me on our way to class, monitoring our every move. They often recorded us and demanded that we leave their encampment as if we did not have a right to exist at Harvard." Shabbos's painful testimony is reinforced by a scathing report written by the Harvard Jewish Alumni Alliance, who spent months investigating anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus. This audit found that, quote, Harvard has been a hostile environment for many Jewish students since and before October 7th. Through conversations with 42 Jewish students, the report found that they had been systematically targeted and excluded not only by other students, but also within classrooms and by professors. One student reported being kicked out of class because he was from Israel. Others reported being harassed for wearing yarmulkes. Still others talked about the toxicity of Harvard's social media platform, where statements like "gas the Jews" went unchecked and unpunished. Dear friends, these are trying times for the Jewish community. The curse of anti-Semitism feels as present and dangerous as it ever has in my lifetime, and seemingly its currency only continues to grow. Still, we are a people long acquainted with curses, as evidenced by our Torah portion, Bechukotai. Bechukotai, as explained so eloquently by Ron, describes a theological system in which those who follow God's laws will be blessed and those who don't will be cursed. But these blessings and curses operate in a system that is less about God's wrath and more about our ancestors yearning to understand the inevitable vicissitudes of life. We all have blessing. We all have curse, and they intermingle in unpredictable and often irregular ways. None can say when a blessing will transform into a curse, or when a curse will suddenly yield a blessing. As we look out onto these campuses where anti-Semitism is raging, it's hard to imagine a less fertile ground for blessings. And yet, From this arid landscape, unexpected blessings have emerged. We see these blessings in the strong Hillels and Jewish centers which have supported our students heroically through this exceptionally challenging year. These Jewish spaces which expanded their programming tremendously post-October 7th became lifelines for so many as the tensions on campus grew. Countless Jewish students who never before entered the doors of Hillel found their way to a Shabbat dinner or a game night or a Passover Seder because they had been activated in some way by October 7th. They needed a place where they could feel safe and welcome, and Hillel provided that. This year, Hillel was to the protests as our frontline workers were to COVID, essential, intrepid, and utterly committed to their mission. A true blessing if there ever was one. Over these last several months, we've also found blessing in our incredible Jewish students who have shown boundless measures of resilience and courage throughout these protests. This was not the year they envisioned, and yet they persevered. They persevered. And some Jewish students did more than persevere. They stood strong in their Jewish and Zionist identities. They spoke up and led their communities in the most stunning of ways, sounding the alarm about the rising anti-Semitism in their midst. I'm thinking of Shabbos Kestenbaum, the brave Harvard student whom I quoted earlier, and Eli Tzivis, the UCLA freshman who fearlessly documented the bullying, harassment, and intimidation against Jews on his campus. And I'm thinking as well of Eden Yadigar, president of the Columbia chapter of Students Supporting Israel, who not only testified before Congress about the pervasive anti-Semitism at Columbia, but she co-authored the now viral letter representing the views of proudly Zionist Jews on Columbia's campus. In her congressional testimony, Eden defiantly stated, "I have a message for anyone who would seek to silence us. We are not Jews with trembling knees. We are proud Jews who carry with us the tradition of resilience in the face of persecution, and we will not be silenced." Eden, Eli, and Shabbos are but three of a cadre of young Jewish leaders who have emerged from this fraught moment. All found their voices in response to the anti-Semitism roiling in their midst. All have enabled so many others to raise their voices too. In them, we see the birth of a new generation of leaders, and it is nothing short of extraordinary. As headlines continue to rage about anti-Semitism on campuses, we must find ways to cultivate the seeds of blessing that have been planted over this past year. We must support our Hillel chapters and the campus clergy who are on the ground every day advocating on behalf of our students. And we must support our Jewish students as well by empowering them to speak up for the Jewish community and for Israel, and by encouraging them to call out anti-Semitism when they see it. And we must let them know that we have their backs, and we will stand strong with them, and we will be brave alongside them for the duration. On our first college tour, we arrived just as an encampment was being constructed. My immediate reaction was to walk the other way. But as I turned, my eldest grabbed my hand and said, "Mommy, We can't run away from this. This is a part of college right now. The messiness of life, as described by our Torah portion, is very much alive and well on our campuses. And while we don't know for certain what the future will bring, in all likelihood, there will yet be more protests. There will yet be more calls for divestment. And there will yet be more anti-Semitism. Still, the glint in my son's eye told me that, despite it all, the infinite potential for blessing yet remains. Shabbat Shalom.